And here we're back with old Bonegrinder. We're going to work on windows and awnings. And that means we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 on the second level, and another 5, 6, 7, 8, total 8, another 4 on the third level. And that's what we're going to be working on this week. So let's get started in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to start now with this 1/8 inch dowel, a square dowel, and that's what we're going to use for the frame of the window. And what I'm going to do is just cut it at 1 inch lengths, and I'll start with that and see where it goes from there. So it's a 4-panel window, so I'll need 3 vertical parts for the frame there, and then 2 little tiny pieces go horizontal there to make our 4-frame window. There we go. And it's more like a rectangle, so it's taller than it is wide, just by a little bit. And for this first one, I used this gel like super glue, which you've seen in some of my other videos. I really like it. It just seems to be a little easier to work with. It is a little pricey though. And while I use it for this first window, switch over to some of white glue for subsequent windows. So I'll put it on there just to get an idea of how big it would be and what the scale is, and I decided to shorten it down a little bit later. Now for the second part, I'm doing the awning, and my buddy over at Earthman Brick, his channel is really pretty cool. I think I've mentioned it before, but he gave me this idea that maybe to use a bottle cap and cut it in half. I wanted to use wood, so I didn't end up doing that, but I did use a bottle cap to help me frame out the awning, as you saw there. And you'll see a little bit more of that here in a little bit. So once I cut down the window frame and let it dry and set for a little bit, I used it to sort of measure out all the subsequent windows. And you'll see here I'm playing around with white glue this time. And to help move the pieces in and keep them relatively square, I use my X-Acto knife to push it into place, which got glue on the blade, which that's something I do a lot. I get a lot of glue on the blade. That's why I got a billion blades sitting off to the side here. Buy them in bulk, I say. So as you can see here, I'm just measuring them out one at a time. This takes a little bit of time, but it's not that bad. I'm going to go through, measure each one of the pieces. I always stuck with doing the 3 vertical pieces and then fit in those horizontal pieces to make the 4 panes. There's different ways you could have attacked the problem, so to speak, but that seemed to work best for me. It does get a lot of glue on your fingers though. Dun, dun, dun. A little bit more getting in there. This was actually fun to work with, to be honest. Use a hoop to move all the little pieces into place. And then I just let it glue in place there and use the razor blade to pull them off the map. So I use this espresso brown to paint all the windows. There's 1, 2, wax paper underneath. There's 3, 4, and total 8 here. Then 4, there's 5, and then there's 6, 7, and 8. And then I'd already made all of the awnings, or I think all but 2 at this point. And I'm going to use orange because that looked like the color in the module, in the pictures in the module. Now it's not quite as bright as this orange, but because I'll be using some washes at the end of the project to make everything a little bit more grimy and aged, it will tone down this orange quite a bit. And I might even do a little bit of exaggeration on some paint chipping and that kind of thing, just for fun. There I'm pulling the last 2 off of the bottle caps that I used to shape them up. Used them like as forms for the little coffee stirrers glued together. Now at this point, I did a little bit of touch up on the window frames because there were some places where I missed painting them the first time around, and there's places where the glue also had bunched up a little bit. So I went back and I cleaned them up and made sure I had them completely covered in a good base. Now I wanted to give it like window panes for the windows. So what I did here is I used pieces of plastic from, like, packaging and stuff. Any packaging you do. Toys are really good for this kind of thing if you have some toy packaging. And I just cut out to the shape of the window and then used some super glue, glued it on the back, and let it dry. Now to put it into the windmill, I wanted to recess them a little bit into the windmill. So I did a little tiny cutout here, and I wanted it to be really tight. So I used the window to give me the outline of where I need to cut, and then just a crosshatch, and then use my little modeling clay tool to take the foam out. You'll see I'm being really careful to make sure I get it as precise as I can, because I want about as perfect a fit as you can get here. I don't want to leave any spaces and stuff around the window. Once I have a good fit, I just go back with some Mod Podge to give a little bit of a black base behind it, because of that clear window, you're going to be able to see behind it, and I wanted it to be black, like it's dark inside. I should have waited to let this let the Mod Podge dry, but I was in a hurry, and I figured it would dry and be clear a little bit later. So I just went ahead and glued it on. I was going pretty fast at this part of the build. Then once the window was in place, I just glued the awning over top of it, and pretty much the rest of the process was doing the same thing, putting these little panels of plastic on the back and then digging out the holes and putting glue into place and pushing the windows in, making sure you cut out. Sometimes I had to go through and do a little bit of trimming up around the edges. The white glue worked really good to hold it into place. A little bit of cleanup too, because I used a little bit too much white glue when I was putting on the awnings. Again, I was going really fast and be a little sloppy here, but it actually turned out pretty well. I eyeballed the placement of the windows, trying to keep them, aligned vertically, and then evenly spaced around the windmill itself. You could take more time and actually measure these out if you wanted to, using a piece of string and a tape measure or something like that, but it really came out looking good. Plus, again, this windmill is supposed to be aged and not quite sitting right. I think I even describe it as tilted a little bit on its side as it's on the landscape itself. This was a lot of fun doing this, with the windows and stuff. Dun, 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 dun. Here I am putting in another window. I think this is the last one, or maybe the next to last one. Yeah, it was really, the Mod Podge was sort of sticking with the white glue. Mixing in a little bit, so it stayed white on the inside. Like, you could still see the white glue for quite a bit of time after that, but it eventually dried out, and the windows looked really good at the end. Here I am just using that modeling tool to pull out the foam, and I always sort of undercut because it's, I can't cut longer, so I would undercut and then maybe spread out just a little bit more as needed, fit it multiple times, and take out a little bit more. That's what I would recommend anyway. Using that super glue up. And there we go. I got it all done and was really happy with how it looked. And you see right there how I'll put those on. Just a little bit of white glue and then smack it over top of it. Bam, done. Bob's your uncle. And that's it for this week's tabletop that. Hopefully we'll be able to wrap this up soon. I had a little bit of issues with my my plumbing. Pipes exploded all in my studio. It's a big mess down here right now. Plumbers are coming tomorrow to fix it up, and hopefully I'll be back to it on Saturday to finish out the roof and do the black washes, maybe add some moss, and we'll wrap this thing up next week. Anyway, that's it for this week's tabletop that. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Feel free to leave comments down below if you have any questions, or if you have comments or suggestions. That would be fantastic. And until next week, have fun and keep crafting.